Bubonic Plague, Black Death. The Black Death. If you were a medieval peasant in Europe, you had a 2 in 3 chance of contracting the bubonic plague, which is the most common type of plague caused by the bite of an infected flea. It killed an inconvenient rat, which would then take a nap on your straw bed. Within a week, you would become the next victim of the Black Death, suffering from extremely painful symptoms like a high fever, painful swollen lymph nodes, and extreme fatigue without the use of antibiotics. The bubonic plague killed almost 70% of those who contracted it. It destroyed entire villages and spread so fast that there weren't enough survivors to bury the dead. Tuberculosis. A dangerous infectious disease called tuberculosis typically affects the lungs. It is caused by the macrobacterium tuberculosis, which spreads through the air when an infected person coughs or sneezes. Imagine that in the year 1890, you start to experience symptoms like a terrible cough that lasts for weeks, chest pains that get worse over time, coughing up blood, extreme fatigue, a high fever, and night sweats. As the disease progresses, you experience these symptoms. Simply devour your lungs from the inside out. When the doctor opened your body to ascertain the cause of death, he would discover that the bacteria had created numerous hollow holes in your lungs, feeding on them without the need for a 6-month treatment plan that would have had numerous negative effects. Anyone infected with this illness has a 60% mortality rate. Ebola. Due to its extreme symptoms, which included bleeding from many internal organs, the very deadly and horrifying Ebola virus gained notoriety. The virus affects the body's immunological and vascular systems, causing extensive damage. Before entering more severe stages, sufferers frequently experience symptoms like fever, exhaustion, muscle soreness, and severe headaches. An instance of this occurred in 2014, when a man would unintentionally consume tainted meat one day and then have classic Ebola symptoms the next. Hemorrhagic fever, which would cause bleeding from the gums, nose, and eyes, among other organs. The reason for severe bleeding is that the virus is physically tearing apart your blood arteries, and in a desperate attempt, your brain fires everything it has through a cyto. It's like dropping a nuclear bomb on a hornet's nest. Because of the horrifying symptoms of Ebola, 90% of those infected currently die from the disease, giving you a 90% risk of dying. Leprosy. Contrary to popular belief, leprosy is not highly contagious. In the past, people with leprosy were shunned from society and forced to live in colonies with other sick people because they were afraid of contracting the disease. Leprosy is caused by a bacterium called Mycobacterium leper, and it often begins with pale or reddish patches on the skin that are numb to the touch. If left untreated, it can cause severe nerve damage, skin lesions, muscle weakness, and paralysis. Over time, your fingers, toes, and nose would start to fall off, leaving you permanently disfigured. Malaria. Malaria is a serious illness that is brought on by a parasite that is carried by infected mosquitoes and enters the body through the liver, where it multiplies before infecting and killing red blood cells. Symptoms typically start to show up 5 to 10 days after the bite. Due to the malaria parasite's widespread destruction of red blood cells, if treatment is not received, the parasite load in the blood continues to rise, which increases the risk of more serious complications as the parasite invades and destroys any organ. Malaria is so effective at invading and killing red blood cells that scientists have not yet developed a method of removing it from red blood cells without killing every part of your body. Anthrax. The spore-forming bacteria that causes anthrax is capable of being utilized as a biological weapon. Assuming you were a biological terrorist, all you would need to do to obtain the anthrax spore genome, a lab, and the supplies you need to create your biological weapon in the comfort of your own home would be about $9,000. The most serious type, anthrax, is usually inhaled spores that induce severe respiratory problems. The illness spreads quickly through the bloodstream and lungs, and your body fights it off by releasing white blood cells to eat it up. As the bacteria adapt to live inside your white blood cells, they burst out of them like in an alien invasion movie. Rinse and repeat, and you have a whole body disaster as the bacteria uses your cells as fuel for its never-ending hunger until you die. The spores will wait for the next victim for years, but fortunately, for the time being, almost all cases are related to animals. Polio. Even though it's a serious subject, polio can be interpreted humorously if you picture your body as a moat-surrounded fortress. Knights protecting your spinal cord. Polio to your immune system is like to a general siege. A virus called your castle can slither over the moat, and, if it manages to get past your immune system's defenses, it will leave you with permanent, lifelong symptoms. Although the advent of vaccines has dramatically reduced the number of occurrences of polio globally, the disease still largely affects children under the age of 5 and can cause irreversible paralysis once it enters the body. The virus replicates in the intestine, where it can invade the nerve system and cause paralysis. Tetanus. Anybody within the vicinity of a rusty playground is susceptible to contracting tetanus, a serious condition caused by a bacterial infection. The bacteria that cause tetanus is frequently present in manure and soil dust, and the infection typically enters the body through cuts or open wounds. You might poke yourself with a rusty nail on the playground and ignore it, but little do you know that an unwanted visitor has taken up residence. Once inside the body, the bacteria release a toxin that affects the nerves, causing stiffness and spasms in the muscles, especially in the jaw and neck. This condition is known as lockjaw because it can make it difficult to open the mouth and swallow. If tetanus is not treated, it can be fatal and cause complete muscle locking, which can cause excruciating pain that lasts for hours on end. Cholera. When someone ingests contaminated water or food, the bacteria release a toxin in the intestines that causes profuse watery diarrhea, vomiting, and leg cramps. This quickly leads to severe dehydration, and without treatment, even large amounts of water consumption may not be able to prevent the intense symptoms because the bacteria toxins make it so that you reasonably cannot physically hold anything in your stomach without severe vomiting. Cholera is a bacterial infection that is known for its rapid onset of severe diarrhea and dehydration, often leading to a life-threatening condition or death if not treated promptly. Mad cow disease. A strange example of an animal disease that humans can contract by eating meat is mad cow disease. Imagine a peacefully grazing pasture full of happy cows, and then all of a sudden one of the cows starts acting as though it has lost its mind. If this crazy cow was meant to be a brain cell that was a well-oiled machine, then picture a wrong situation where tiny protein cogs seamlessly operate to keep the machine going and your brain functioning properly. A bent-out-of-shape cog is similar to a prison since it doesn't fit properly with the other cogs and quickly bends the entire machine. The frightening thing about this rogue cog problem is that it can spread to humans if they eat meat from an infected cow. The prone can jump into your brain and start twisting your cogs, which is how humans can get variant CIT spell. The entire machine grinds to a stop, just like a prone-infected brain cell stops working correctly in cows with mad cow disease. This malfunctioning happens in many brain cells, leading to spongy holes and a decline in brain function. That's why they might stumble, behave strangely, or even turn aggressive. Creutzfeldt Jakob disease (CJD). The mad cow disease that affects humans. Jakob Creutzfeldt illness, like its cow counterpart, CJD, is a puzzling and bewildering labyrinth of brain problems. To understand it better, picture your brain as an elaborate jigsaw puzzle with precise roles and locations for each piece. But CJD is like that pesky missing puzzle piece that keeps trying to fit and ruining the whole picture. This disorder is again brought on by misfolded proteins called prawns, which generate confusion and mayhem like unruly guests at a well-planned party. As they progress, they also remove the pieces of the puzzle associated with memory loss. They do this by persuading other proteins in your brain to misfold, starting a chain reaction of neurological mayhem. Decrease in cognition, twitches in the muscles, and personality blur the once clear image. The puzzle gets more and more disorganized, and eventually movement and communication are completely lost. Unlike a puzzle that can be solved, CJD is an uncommon and debilitating condition for which there is no known cure, leaving researchers and healthcare professionals perplexed by its intricacy and effect on the brain. Brain-eating amoeba. Often referred to as the brain eater, Malaria amoeba is a microscopic organism that lives in warm freshwater environments like lakes, rivers, and hot springs. While it's usually enjoyable to dip in warm natural water on a hot summer day, under the right circumstances, Malaria may enter the nose. Once inside, it can cause an extremely severe brain infection by traveling up the olfactory nerve and causing symptoms like severe headaches, fever, nausea, and stiff necks. This can make it feel like a science fiction story coming to life. Sadly, amoeba is usually swift and almost always fatal, with a low survival rate. Familial fatal insomnia (FFI). Family fatality insomnia is a very rare genetic illness brought on by a mutation in your DNA. It is quite likely the epitome of a waking nightmare, as a person gradually loses the capacity to sleep, and as they do, their mind and body disintegrate like a terrifying thriller. As sleep deprivation intensifies, patients experience hallucinations, delirium, and severe psychiatric symptoms that almost seem out of a surreal horror story. Ultimately, this leads to a complete breakdown of the body's functions, which results in death. The nightmare starts with insomnia and gets worse over time, leading to a complete and irreversible loss of sleep. Kuru. In this case, cannibalism is added to the deadly brain disease Kuru, which causes neurological degeneration. Kuru originated as a result of eating the brains and nervous tissues of departed family members during their funeral feasts. In keeping with the meaning of the word Kuru, which is to shiver or tremble in dread, participants in this rite would eventually suffer from muscular tremors, loss of balance, and an unsettling incapacity to regulate their motions. Kuru's last stages produced extreme debilitation and frequently resulted in death within a year of the onset of symptoms. This is just one more reason to add eating people to the extensive list of reasons why this is a bad idea. Rabies. This unsettling tale describes how the rabies virus is spread by an infected animal biting a human, infiltrating the nervous system, and causing madness and terror once human symptoms appear. Fear of water, severe hallucinations, and violent spasms are just a few of the horrifying effects. Rabies is the deadliest disease on Earth and causes animals and people to go rabid with symptoms like uncontrollable bursts of rage. Even more terrifying is the fact that 98% of rabies cases result in a terrible death shortly after the disease manifests, and that death almost always follows. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like our channel for more enthusiastic content.